Hi. Donald Trump was acquitted by the Republican House, Senate, actually, I should say. Um, yeah, just double checking that. Not surprising, it's controlled by the Republicans. That was always going to be the outcome, which really raises the question: why did the Democrats put so much energy into this, even if in good conscience they believed that the charges of obstruction of justice and so on were accurate. They must have known that the Republicans were going to respond this way, and so um, unfortunately, it's just going to make Trump now look like a martyr. Even though over half of Republicans believe he was guilty of wrongdoing but not impeachable offences. That's not exactly a glowing endorsement of the president. Um, these things are always partisan. Of course, Bill Clinton was cleared by a Democratic controlled Senate back in 1998. Um, but this made me think about just Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, because I think there's a bit of a phenomenon with Donald Trump. Something I've noticed, which is that anyone who criticizes Trump is accused of having Trump derangement syndrome, i.e., this idea they'll criticize Trump just for the sake of it. Now, it may be that there are some on the left who have always had that attitude that no matter what he says or does, they will criticize him. I don't believe I fall into that category because I have reluctantly defended Trump on occasion. For example, I believe he is right to call Islamic extremism, and I still think Obama was wrong not to name it. Um, I think Trump was right to call MS-13 and other cartels vicious animals, etc. And I think that was somewhat taken out of context to imply that he was attacking all immigrants. I don't think he was. So there is a degree of media distortion going on. But I don't think it's fake news to the extent that Trump has claimed. And I think it's dangerous, actually, what he is doing in basically saying any media criticism of him is fake. Now, that taps into a president who is famously thin skinned. Um, So people say there's a Trump derangement syndrome. I would suggest that people saying that they have a Trump support syndrome in the sense that they will doggedly defend Trump no matter what he says or does. So if you're attacking people for criticizing the president, but you cannot bring yourself to accept that he is saying and doing things that are unprecedented in modern American history, then you're just as dogmatic in that sense. I mean, I just cannot believe that people are defending some of the things this guy is doing. This is a president who has openly called on a powerful and hostile foreign adversary to look into the domestic rivals. I'm referring to him calling on the Chinese to look into Joe Biden. This is a president who called on the Russians to look into Clinton's emails. No matter whatever you think of Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton, for an American president to say that about his political opponents domestically, what I would say is by all means, throw all the fire at them. That's politics, right? But don't bring powerful foreign adversaries into it. I think that is utterly astonishing. And that to me demonstrates this is a president more interested in his own ego than national security. Now, he has been cleared in the impeachment proceedings, and I don't know enough about the allowances for impeachment to make much comment about that. But even leaving this aside, there is a long catalogue of things that Trump has said and done that I don't know how anyone can rationally defend it. This is a man who's told outright lies, and not just regarding American politics. I mean, he lied about Obama for years. The whole birther thing was a disgrace. But he's lied about this country as well. He falsely claimed, for example, that junior NHS doctors were protesting against the NHS as a system. What they were actually protesting about was Tory policies regarding the NHS. They weren't protesting about the NHS as a system. Trump lied about that in order to shore up his domestic agenda against universal health care. That is just one of many, many examples of Trump's barefaced lies. And it comes to a point where he tells so many lies that his supporters just accept it's the truth. I mean, CNN doesn't help themselves. I will say that. CNN really doesn't help themselves when they allow left wing punditry to become so dominant. And they do invite on Trump supporters, but they're basically doing a Fox, but in reverse. It's like when Obama was president, Fox would have the token liberal to defend Obama, but they would be overwhelmingly conservative and very biased in their outlook on President Obama. Okay, so CNN is very biased against Trump. They are. They haven't done themselves any favors. And one could argue it's taken a character like Trump to get a conversation about media accountability. I don't have much sympathy with CNN. Nevertheless, I do think it's dangerous for a sitting president to basically say that any criticism of him is fake news. That's dictatorial. Basically saying you cannot criticize me, and if you do, you're fake. That taps into Trump's incredibly thin ego. I mean, this is dangerous. For someone to have the power that he has, to have access to nuclear codes, and to be that thin skinned. I mean, look at his cabinet. More members of cabinet have left the Trump White House than, unless I'm mistaken, any other president in modern times in that period. He's had what, three defense secretaries, two secretaries of state. This is all within his first term. The fact that Trump will immediately resort to Twitter rants whenever he's had a feud with someone, beyond telling anyone in his inner circle, is it's kind of laughed off, but to me that is a real security issue. This is a president who, standing beside the Russian autocrat, openly denigrated his own security services. I just cannot comprehend how anyone could defend these things. And his supporters will say, oh, but Trump has launched a trade war with the Chinese. Trump took out Baghdadi. Trump took out Soleimani. Well, I will praise Trump when I think he's right. I think certainly taking out Baghdadi was a good thing. Great. But the Obama administration killed Osama bin Laden. So, it's not exactly unprecedented in that sense. Um, I just can't believe that people are still defending some of the. I mean, okay, I get that uh, true red Republicans are going to defend Trump because there's partisanism going on. I get that. What I don't understand is how reasonable centre right Republicans doggedly defend this man. I give Mitt Romney credit for speaking out because he knew he would get a lot of slack from his own side. It wasn't exactly a career move. I mean, where do you begin with this president? This is a president. Remember what he spoke, how he treated John McCain? I like people who don't get caught. How can anyone rationally defend that sort of rhetoric about a man who served his country and was tortured in Vietnam? I think it's disgusting, particularly coming from a president who didn't have to serve because of a medical issue, the bone spurs issue. I think Trump is totally obnoxious character. And I could even forgive that. I would say, well, look, you don't want necessarily a nice guy to be president. Perhaps a bit of hardball is okay. Richard Nixon once said he wants to know that a president's tough on the inside. That's fine. I think there is something to be said for that. You don't want necessarily someone who's a nice, amicable figure to be in that sort of position, but at the same time, do you want someone who is an outright narcissist, who doesn't even try to hide it? I just can't comprehend how people so doggedly defend him. I mean, what Trump has done, the whole thing about clearing the swamp, and you get it in Britain too. Britain has no shortage of Trump supporters. I heard someone today talk about, oh, he's clearing the swamp. Is he? Is Trump really an outsider? Is he? I mean, I think this man's an opportunist. I think he will, certainly during the campaign, he will say anything to any target group that pleases them. I really think he is that sort of character. And you could say all politicians do it. But to think this is someone who was a reality TV star, no political experience, and he got into the White House. By the way, he didn't win the popular vote. Let's not forget that. He won the Electoral College vote. Yes, that's a system. He is the legitimate president, but let's not forget the fact that his opponent got 3 million more votes. So Trump did not have an overwhelming endorsement from the American public. And anyone that suggests he does, I mean, what's he got? He has a strong economy, or at least is doing relatively well. Um, there's some debate over whether it's as good as he claims it is. I think it's doing well, and that will probably be enough to keep him in the White House, unfortunately. The gun issue, I can say he has done next to nothing on that, but unfortunately, that also taps into American culture. Most Republican presidents do little on the gun issue. But it's a damn disgrace how Trump continues to pander to the NRA and the Second Amendment, and he cannot face survivors of these atrocities. So, in that sense, he's cowardly. Um, I think I have a theory about this. I think that there are people who really deeply dislike identity politics, and they dislike the regressive left's nonsense. I do. I really can't stand it. And there are certain characters on the Democratic side I don't want to see as president either. But they seem to think that Trump is the only answer to that. I mean, what about reasonable center right Republicans who will stand up to that sort of stuff, but are not as frankly unhinged as Trump is? I just can't believe people are still defending this guy. I cannot believe that. Unfortunately, he probably will get re-elected. I mean, that's a trajectory of what's happened in modern times. There's only been in the last 50 years two one-term presidents, which was, well, let's say the last 40 years anyway, Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush. But in my lifetime, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan were all two-term presidents. So in that sense, Americans are a bit like the British. They don't like radical change. They like kind of keeping things the way they are for the most part. So unfortunately, Trump probably will be re-elected. And I'm just thinking, if this is all the things I've mentioned is what's happened in his first 3 years, I mean, there was Singapore and Hanoi summits, which were billed as historic, and they were technically historic. But what's happened? Has North Korea given up its nuclear weapons? Has the regime changed? Has there been reforms in North Korea? No. That just indicates that Trump was taken for a ride. So it was a foreign policy failure. It may have been well intentioned, although I think it was probably more to do with Trump's ego, but let's say it was well intentioned. He was taken for a ride. And I would say he looked weak in the same way he's looked weak in the same way that Jimmy Carter looked weak at certain points during the Iranian hostage crisis. And yet Republicans are acting like he's some sort of Superman. I would say this is a pretty weak president. I mean, it may show, the trade war with China may turn out to be a good thing to show this is an American president who's standing up to Beijing. Now, I am never going to have a problem with that. But I still believe that there is a real inconsistency and dysfunctional nature to this president that, in my opinion, puts the entire Western world in jeopardy. Because this is a president, I mean, when he carried out the Soleimani strike, he didn't even inform London in advance. Why does that matter? Because Britain has 500 troops in the region. So, as a matter of courtesy to an ally, we were never going to oppose that. So, why not, as a matter of courtesy, give Johnson a heads up? Just in case there really was an all-out conflict broke out, we could have been prepared for it. I think that Yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I do not like Donald Trump, and I think he is probably the worst president in my lifetime. I do not think he is cleaned out the swamp. I think he has added to the swamp. This is a president who is so morally dubious. I just don't see how anyone can continue to doggedly make excuses for him. Even if you go with, okay, he's standing up to the liberal establishment, he's standing up to identity politics, he's shaking things up. Okay, but if you're a proud, patriotic American, right, how can you rationally defend him pandering to foreign dictators who are anti-American? That makes absolutely no sense. If Barack Obama was doing that, they would say he's a communist traitor. So why does Trump get a free pass? It's unbelievable. And I suspect that something is going on in Trump's White House where there's a disconnect between the president and his administration. Because the State Department has taken a hard line. For example, after the Salisbury attack, Russian diplomats were expelled. But on a personal basis, Trump is really pally with Putin. So what's that all about? I think there's a disconnect between the president and State Department, and that is potentially dangerous. So personally, I sincerely hope he is defeated this November. Unfortunately, the Democrats need to get their act together. I mean, the Iowa debacle didn't go down well. The impeachment failure probably won't go down well either. It will allow Trump to look like a martyr. And if the Democrats elect someone that's too far left, it will polarize the wider public. I think they need a good, solid centrist who will hold Trump to account, but not veer too far to the left. Um, and understand middle America, understand how Trump won. I think the Democrats have the risk of making the same mistakes that the British Labour Party made, which is frankly pitching to things that most people don't care about. So, I mean, I do admire the Democrats for being robust on the gun issue. I believe they are trying to do something about that problem the way that the Republicans are not. And if I was American, I'd almost certainly be pro-democratic. That doesn't mean I support all the positions they take. I don't like their identity politics. I don't like their tendency to play up to those things. But I just cannot believe that people still make excuses for this president. He is a president. That to me is not the issue. The issue is, okay, the United States is a democracy. Trump cannot, Trump is not above criticism, and some people are acting like he is.